Welcome to Perkins International Academy. My name is Barbara McCletchie, and the team who devised this curriculum asked me to present on communication. For many years, I was a professor at Boston College, and I taught a course on communication. I've also been very privileged to have worked for Perkins International all over the world and have done in-servicing on communication. But despite that experience, really what I want to share with you about me and this curriculum and the children we serve is the children with whom we work, those children who have visual impairments and multiple disabilities, have taught me more about communication than I've ever learned in any textbook or any lecture on communication. I've also learned a tremendous amount from families. So as we go through this journey today together, let's think about how the children are our best teachers and how the families also are a wonderful source of information and how we can partner with them. This presentation is going to, I hope, help you understand some of the challenges in communication that children with multiple disabilities and visual impairment have. But more important than that, by the time we're finished with these mini presentations, I hope that you will gain confidence so that you can begin to have a glimmering of an understanding of how you can meet these challenges with children and become an effective communication partner. This is the definition that Perkins International and Perkins Academy uses for who are we talking about? Who are learners who have multiple disabilities and vision impairments? You will see many times that we say sensory impairments, but I would like to make very clear that we're talking about children who have vision impairments, which includes low vision, and those children who are totally blind. They also have additional disabilities. The slide lists several different disabilities that children may have, but I'd like to just draw your attention to the first one, which is hard of hearing and deaf, and many of the children that we work with have combined vision and hearing loss, and they are deaf-blind. But then the third bullet down, you'll see physical disabilities, including cerebral palsy. It's really important to think about this group of people, of young children, of older children, because of their physical disabilities, which are more obvious than the vision loss, they are placed in programs for children who are only physically disabled, and no one ever checks or assesses their vision. And you think about vision, if we can promote use of even minimal vision, vision leads the other senses. It's like the conductor of all the other senses. In the United States, about 1/3 of children who have cerebral palsy have vision impairment. And I've come to know that in my work in Asia, a far greater number of children who have cerebral palsy also have vision impairment, and they are in programs where people aren't considering their vision. The final one I think is also important, and that's autism. And we also have to be very careful about this label, because we know that children who are autistic do not have the connection with their eyes, and they also have great difficulty in social relationships, because we spend a lot of time in social relationships looking at people's eyes for communication. So again, some children who are multiply disabled and have vision impairment are labeled autistic, and they do not receive appropriate programs which will maximize their use of residual vision or addresses some of the concepts and social interventions that they might need because they are autistic. The final thing is that all of these children, and that's why you're here, they need outstanding teachers to promote their ability to live, to love, to work, and to play. Learners who are multiply disabled and have vision impairments, and those who are blind, including, remember, deaf-blind, they need highly specialized supports. That means you. The reason you're taking this course is so that you can provide quality programs to children and their families. Children that we work with all face challenges in communicating. What does communicating mean? Well, you need at least two people to communicate. You need someone sending a message and someone receiving a message. Many of the children we work with don't have a desire to communicate because people don't have the skills to provide them with appropriate programs. They're not motivated, and too often they're left alone. So we need to promote a desire in the children, that they want to communicate with us, that they want to be with another person. They also need a way to communicate. And I want you to think about, just for a second, and you can pause this if you like, about all of the ways that you communicate. Yes, we use speech, but we also use gestures. We use objects sometimes to communicate. We use pictures. We point to things. There are many ways of communication. And finally, we need to give them something to communicate about, something that's interesting, something that promotes their curiosity. Promoting curiosity is key to developing communication. I'll talk a little bit more about this, but I want you to keep this in mind, is that with real life, natural learning experiences, we provide motivating experiences that they will want to communicate about. I never do a lecture without thinking about Helen Keller and her famous teacher, Anne Sullivan. And Anne Sullivan said about her work with Helen, "I continue to provide real-life natural learning experiences for Helen. She felt a baby bird being born from its egg. She felt the leaves falling from the trees. She felt the water coming from the pump." So all of these are motivators. And also, Anne Sullivan, probably one of the greatest teachers that I know about, also said that she felt very sorry for children who went to schools for the blind or schools for the deaf and were made to sit in their chairs every day with unmotivating and unnatural activities. So, something to communicate about. A key challenge is to find something that's interesting to the child and then follow their interest. So we've talked about the challenges in communication. Children also face, because of their vision impairment and additional disabilities, they face challenges in emotions, and most often they feel isolated. If you have done a simulation and you haven't done it yet, please do it. Put yourself under blindfold and stand alone with no sound around you, and time yourself for a minute. I bet it will feel like an eternity. And I think the picture of this little girl really depicts the isolation, the loneliness that is felt. So how do we combat the isolation? Again, it's the communication, building connections with first the child's family. The child needs to feel a part of their families, that they belong, that they're included in the flow of everyday life. And connections with other people. And this slide I love because I love animals, but you see the little boy who is actually deaf-blind, and he's connected to his pet dog. And pet dogs are part of many families in the United States. So we talked about the challenges in communication, and communication connects the child with the family and with other people. There are also big challenges in forming meaningful concepts. There's been a lot of research done in the world. Which comes first, the concept development or communication development? When we work with children who have multiple disabilities and communication challenges, I think we need to think about how to develop concepts and communication in harmony together. It's our responsibility as teachers to make the world around them understandable, and also to make their world bigger and bigger and bigger. And this slide shows two deafblind children who are standing by a truck that is full of hay. And they're learning about work on a farm because they're actually experiencing work on a farm. They're doing the real activity and the teacher is signing to them, so they're picking up the language that goes with the work. At one point, I have seen children learn about hay just by looking at a picture of hay or artificial grass or artificial hay. We need, again, and we can't say this enough to you, the importance of real life natural experiences. Concepts is a difficult subject. And again, it is blended with communication, but we think about concepts are really the ideas that we have in our heads, the ideas that we have about an object, the ideas we have about people, the ideas we have about places, the ideas that we have about events like a birthday or it's time to go to lunch. These are all ideas that are formed in our heads. I think the wonderful thing about working with students who have multiple disabilities and visual impairments is that we co-create. We co-create concepts, we connect them with communication, and really doing it together with a child makes it a wonderful adventure to develop their communication and concepts of the world. I think you've learned about some of the challenges that the children that we serve face, and it may sound overwhelming, but we have to ask the question, what can we do about it? How can we promote communication with children who have these disabilities? First and foremost is that we need to establish a trusting relationship with the child. And what does a trusting relationship mean? Think about yourselves. Think about your favorite teachers you had in school. They were favorites, maybe, because you trusted them and they trusted you. And this slide says establishing trusting relationships that build self-esteem. Self-esteem is a big word. But by building a trusting relationship, you develop confidence and you know that you're developing a sense of trust that empowers the child to go beyond you, to want to look at the world. And I think what we see here is a father and a little baby, and it looks like they have a very trusting relationship. The dad's hand is placed on the baby's face, and they're both interacting with each other and loving being together. One of the ways that we must establish a trusting relationship is that think about your hands. Your hands are a powerful form of communication. Children know, even children who have absolutely no formal language, know by the way we touch them whether we like them or not. So think about your hands as a powerful form of communication in developing trust. I think that we need to think about ourselves as communication partners with the learner or with your student. What does a partner mean? It means that there is some equality. Do you remember I said at the beginning that the children are our best teachers? In developing a communication partnership, you need to think about following the interests of the child. Find something that motivates them and enter into their world so the child feels that you are with them. And I think as you think about yourselves and your professional growth, we're all in the process of always becoming a more effective communication partner. We never get it all right. And I've been doing this for over 50 years, and I still don't feel that I'm a perfect communication partner. So think about yourselves and how you can promote a true partnership between you and the children with whom you work. Okay, this slide is, again, we are in the process of becoming a competent communication partner. Children who have multiple disabilities and vision impairment and blindness have great difficulty in building social relationships. Think about yourselves. Did anybody ever teach you how to make a friend? No, you learned naturally. Children who have these combined disabilities have tremendous difficulty in forming social relationships, in bonding with their families. So it's our responsibility to support and encourage others to build relationships with the child, but to provide many, many opportunities for these learners to interact with their peers, to be part of the flow of everyday life, to learn how to greet a friend, and we have to teach them how to make friends, how they become connected to other people. Very often we make a mistake and we think we've accomplished a great deal because the child trusts the teacher. And in reality, what we need to do is be able to help the child transfer the trust to another person, to another person, to another person, so that they end up feeling trust and confidence in building relationships with many other people, to develop relationships with their family, and to make friends. Friends are important. Family first, friends second, work third. Let's think about ourselves, as I said before. We're all in the process of becoming a competent communication partner. And I think if we take a look at this slide, we see a young man and his teacher. He happens to be deaf-blind, in a market, and they're buying fruit. The teacher is giving him words for the different names of the fruit. Probably banana is a universal sign. Look at their hands. His hand is over the teacher's, but they're both feeling the fruit together. And I think the other thing that you see in this slide is real motivation and joy in doing this. Again, real life, natural activity, blending communication and concept development. Families. You've heard many times, or you've read many times, that one of the real beliefs of Perkins International Academy is that we really need to support and to value families. We talked about partnerships. We need to think about the mothers and the fathers and the sisters and the brothers. They're our partners in developing communication abilities. Also, think about the home and think about yourselves. Most of what you learned before you ever went to school when you were 5 or 6 years old. You knew thousands of concepts, simple things like a switch turns on a light. You learned that water comes from a tap. You learned your language. You learned how to communicate, and you had relationships. These are all the things that children who have multiple disabilities and vision impairment and blindness do not learn naturally. That's why I hope that you're here listening to part of these Perkins International Academy and learning from it. These children need the very, very best teachers. We need to teach them everything that other children learn naturally. And this is a picture of a family engaged with each other, and obviously they love each other. And I said before, the pet is part of the family. Fostering independence, self-advocacy, and determination. What does this mean? In simple terms, it means that we begin to give children choices from when they're very little children to when they become school age and older. So we need to think about how important choices are in our everyday lives. We make hundreds and hundreds of choices. Children who have the disabilities of vision impairment and additional disabilities, very often choices are made for them. We don't promote enough opportunities for them to make choices during the day. Making choices gives power. Choices begin at a very early age. A 3-week-old baby can tell us when they want more milk or they want no more milk. They made a choice and the mother responds to it. So I think we need to think about your programs and how many choices you offer during a day. And also think about the quality of choices. Very often people will say, oh, mealtime is a wonderful time to offer a choice. But that's not a quality choice if the child does not like to eat or does not like to drink. So we're fostering independence. It begins with choice making, and as they get older, we want them to be able to self-advocate. We want them to be able to tell us who they want to be with, who are their friends, who they want to be with, where they want to live, where they want to go for leisure activities. So all of these choices promote self-advocacy for adults. We're going to look at this slide and to think about our responsibility. At the beginning, the child's world is very small, probably within reach for most of the children with whom we work. So when we develop concepts and we develop communication through real life, natural learning experiences as much as we can, we're making the child's world bigger and bigger and bigger. This last slide in this mini lecture shows a group of blind children from the Philippines. A group of parents wanted their children to understand what a mountain is. So they hired a couple of mountaineers, and their children actually climbed a mountain. So they're certainly expanding their knowledge of the world. I think that when we think of expanding knowledge of the world, think about what's important to you. We expand their knowledge of people. We expand their knowledge from the mother's arm to the father, to the siblings, to neighbors. It all goes in a spiral. We expand their knowledge of places, from the crib to the bedroom, to the house, to the neighborhood, to the community, maybe beyond the community. We also expand their knowledge of things. At first, they're only interested in a very few things, but together we can make them curious and expand their knowledge about the world. And again, I've used the word curiosity. If we can help a child to be curious, and if we can add enthusiasm to the activities that we do with a child, you'll be doing a good job. And I think that may come naturally to many of you. Let's reflect back on what we have talked about in this mini lecture. Remember that the population of learners are very diverse, just like all of us. Each is unique, and each child that you work with is going to have very unique approaches. But we always have to remember that the common thread, or the common thing that they share in common, is that they share challenges in developing communication, in developing concepts, and most important, in developing relationships. Second, I'd love you to think about yourselves as being in the process of becoming a competent communication partner. And I think that you've had a hint of some ways that you can do that. You need to begin by developing trust. You need to involve families, and you need to involve the child in learning about the world through real-life experiences linked with communication and concept development. And this final slide, we're ending this mini lecture with a picture of a teacher and a little girl. They're in Africa. And I love this slide. First of all, the teacher is imitating the child. They're both interested in something beyond themselves. And most important, I think when you look at this slide, you can see the joie de vivre, the joy of life, the enjoyment that they're having together in learning together.